This video is to help you with number 8 on CR number 26. Anthony approached me today and let me know I never made a video for this one, so I'm going to throw one together now. So I just changed the numbers up a little bit, but didn't change the problem from your actual CR. It says Maya traveled 160 miles in 2.5 hours. Daniel traveled 232 miles in 4 3/4 hours. If Maya had traveled at the same rate for 4 3/4 hours, how many more miles would she have traveled than Daniel? This is really a unit rate problem. I want to figure out how many miles, how many miles Maya would travel in just 1 hour. And then from that information, I'll be able to figure out how far she would travel in 4 3/4 hours. I'm going to go through the 7th grade method. At the 6th grade level, you probably might lean towards upside down caret for this problem. I'm going to show you in 7th grade. In 7th grade, what we'll do is we'll set up equivalent ratios. So we look at what we're comparing. We're comparing miles to hours. So we would set up a word proportion. Miles to hours equals miles to hours. And in a few months, you're going to be 7th graders, so it doesn't hurt you to see this ahead of time. So Maya can travel 160 miles in 2.5 hours. So she can travel 160 miles in 2.5 hours. There's more than one way to go about this problem. I'm going to make it a unit rate and figure out how many miles she can travel in just 1 hour. Because once I know how many miles she can travel in 1 hour, I'll be able to figure out how far she can travel in 4 3/4 hours. Again, more than one way to go about this problem. So what I would do here is I'd now, with my equivalent ratios, 160 miles in 2.5 hours, how many miles in 1 hour? Well, I know something about my denominators. I have to figure out how do I get from 2.5 to 1 by multiplying or dividing. Oh, I could divide my denominator by 2.5 because 2.5 divided by 2.5 is 1. If I'm going to divide the denominator by 2.5, I also need to divide the numerator by 2.5. That'll give me how many miles Maya can travel in just 1 hour. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do 160 divided by 2.5. I know in your division of fractions unit, you eventually get to your drop, change, flip, skip, flip, multiply. So I'm going to use that method. But what we first need to do is take this 2.5 and say, how many halves is that? Well, if I have 2 whole circles and a half of another circle, how many halves do I have? Well, I could break that first whole circle in half. I could break my second whole circle in half, and I have this extra half of a circle. So that would be actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 halves. 2 1/2 is the same as 5 halves. And the quick way that you then work towards in mathematics, if you don't want to have to draw it out every time to see how many halves you're discussing, if you're given 2 whole circles and half of another, you do 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. That's the process. 2 times 2 is 4, and then you do 4 plus 1 is 5, and that gives us 5 halves. So that's 160 divided by now 5 halves. It's just a little scrap work. Now you can do your skip, flip, multiply, drop, change, flip, whatever little saying you say for division of fractions. There's lots of ways to divide fractions, but I believe by the end of the unit you use your standard algorithm. You keep that first fraction, change your division to multiplication, and then you multiply by the inverse of 5 halves, which would be 2/5. Then you can choose to multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom if you want. 160 times 2. Let's check that out. 160 times 2. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 6 is 12. Put down a 2, carry a 1. 2 times 1 is 2, and 1 more is 3. 160 times 2 is 320. Then we have 320 divided by 5. Okay, you could long divide that off to the side. 320 divided by 5. 5 goes into 32 6 times, so that 6 goes right above the 2. 6 times 5 is 30. Subtract off. You have 2 left over. Bring down the 0. 5 goes into 20 4 times. So this must be 64 miles in 1 hour. So she can go 64 miles in 1 hour. But I want to know if she can go 64 miles in 1 hour. That's her rate. 64 miles per hour is a rate. How far can she travel in 4 3/4 hours? Okay, we can again do miles to hours equals miles to hours. And we just figured out the unit rate. We figured out that Maya could go 64 miles in 1 hour. We want to know how far she can travel in 4 3/4 hours. So because that's hours, I put my 4 3/4 next to hours. Oops, 4 3/4. 4 3/4 next to hours. So if she can go 64 miles in 1 hour, how many miles can she go in 4 3/4 hours? So I look at the bottom. I say, how can I get from 1 to 4 3/4? Oh, I could multiply by 4 3/4. If I'm going to multiply the denominator by 4 3/4, I had better multiply the numerator by 4 3/4. Oh, goodness. I have to do 64 times 4 3/4. All right. Again, when we're multiplying by mixed numbers, there's lots of ways to go about it. But if you're multiplying by mixed numbers, the standard algorithm would be for you to convert that mixed number to an improper fraction. So if I had 4 whole circles and then 3/4 of another circle, ooh, there's going to be an ugly picture. 3/4 of another circle, the question is, how many fourths is that? If I have 4 whole circles and 3/4 of another, how many fourths am I dealing with? Well, I like to do visuals, so I just draw out 4 whole circles and 3/4 of another, break them all up into fourths, and then I just count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Woo! 4 3/4 is the same as 19/4. That's what this visual shows us. 4 3/4 is the same as 19/4. So then I do 64 times 19/4. And again, if you want to talk about the quick way to do the 4 3/4, you do 4 times 4 is 16. Then you do 16 plus 3 is 19. And that's another quick way to come up with that 4 3/4 is the same as 19/4. Oh gosh, we have to multiply these. 64 is the same as 64 over 1. Because I'm dealing with such large numbers here, I think I'm going to simplify first. 4 goes into 4 once. How many times does 4 go into 64? So 4 into 64. 4 goes into 6 once. 6 minus 4 is 2. Drag down that 4. How many times does 4 go into 24? 6 times. So how many times does 4 go into 64? 16 times. Now I have to do 16 times 19. So I'm going to go ahead and long multiply that off to the side. There's a lot of work to this problem. 16 times 19. 9 times 6 is 54. Put down a 4. Carry a 5. 9 times 1 is 9 and 5 more. 9 times 1 is 9 and 5 more is 14. 0 placeholder. We move to the tens place. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. Then if we add these up, we have 4. 6 and 4 is 10. 1, 2, 3. 304 miles she must go. As long as I haven't made a mistake in my calculations. My process is fine. So she goes 304 miles in 4 3/4 hours. And the question is, so that's how far Maya goes in 4 3/4 hours. How many more miles would she travel than Daniel? Daniel can travel 232 in 4 3/4 hours. Maya can travel 304 in 4 3/4 hours. And what you need to do at that point is just subtract those numbers to figure out how many more miles Maya can go. So 304 minus 232. All right, 4 minus 2 is 2. Can't take 3 from 0. Borrow from this hundreds place, make your 300 a 200. We've just borrowed 10 tens. 10 minus 3 is 7. 2 minus 2 is 0. She can travel 72 more miles than Daniel. So if you see Anthony, thank him for reminding me that I forgot to make this video. Take care. I hope that helps.